Okay, my name is Stephen Pilla. I'm third generation cane farmer in the Grew district. So my main farm is situated opposite the United Service Station near Grew. I also have another farm on Upper Horton Road, and I manage my parents' farm over near the reed beds. So in total, I'm chasing around after about 600 acres, or 240 hectares in the new measure. Predominantly cane. We have done a bit with beans in the past. When I left college, I did agricultural and hostelry courses at college. I took a little bit of a different turn when I left school, because I actually went and did nursing for a couple of years and then came back to the industry. So the industry to me has been in the family. So grandfather started, my father and I followed on, and I've carried on the farming practice. Talking to your teacher, found that you've had your garden plot growing and you've been using soil moisture equipment, which that got me interested probably back in the early 90s when we were starting to muck around with irrigation scheduling and growth measurements in cane. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. It's basically large tube, rubber stopper, filled with water, ceramic tip. Now, you all know what a G-dot does? That's basically the early model. So that goes in the ground, ceramic tip. If you feel that later on, you'll feel it's cold. And that's the moisture coming out. So that goes down into the root zone. It's easy to determine because as you push it in, you'll feel it breaking through the roots. And that's usually where we stop. You can dig down like you do with the G-dot and actually bury it, but I found the easiest place to put it. And then basically to do the same as the G-dot, I used to go in every day, get a little hypodermic needle, which sacroiliacs came off of me. That with the reader, it pokes in through the top of the rubber stopper. It gives you a little digital readout on there. Basically, your negative pressure, your vacuum on there, which is exactly what it is. Measuring your soil tension, your moisture tension. And simple, very cheap. So if you lost one, it wasn't really a concern compared to your G-dots. But it's good to see you sort of using, we've come a long way in that sense now with G-dots. You set them up, you have a look as you drive past, that's what you read. That's probably led me on to quite a few things over the years with what we do in our farming practice. What I realised from doing scheduled irrigation and doing growth measurements in the cane when applying the water was we were going from basically a 10-day rotation irrigation. I brought that back to a 5 to 6 day rotation. So in the period where I was probably putting in 2 irrigations, I was now doing 3, but using less water and maintaining my maximum growth in the crop. So basically a win-win for me all the way. That's led on to different projects over the years, and now with the reef regulations that they've come in, where we've got to be careful what comes out of our farms, we've got to manage our nutrient inputs. I've been a part of different projects over the years. One of those was RP20, which was in the Burdekin group of growers where we ground-proof basically the 6 easy steps, which is a recognised method that we use to determine what nutrients we need to grow our crop. And what we found from that was you've got to have the right amounts of nutrient in there. Putting more on doesn't mean you'll actually gain more. It will increase your cost, but through the 6 easy steps and through the RP20 project, we found that it's not only the nutrients that affect your growth. So you've got getting your moisture or your irrigation scheduling correct, managing your weeds, your soil types. So it's sort of in a sense, a lot of stuff we were dealing with before, but not as in depth as what we found in doing this. Now, the latest project that I've been involved in, we're still running at the moment, it's funded by the Great Barrier Reef Foundation. It's led by SRA with technical support from Burdekin Productivity Services and BIFMAC. Now, basically what we're doing, if we could get those pictures up please, is we've done what I wanted to do, and it's basically came back to what does the farmer want to do as far as trialling and practice change on his farm. So through this project I wanted to trial different methods of applying fertiliser to the paddock. One method was still splitting, where we're running the culvert through the centre of the road, applying self-service like that. The second method was still splitting with the zipper wheels on the back. Now these are spike wheels pressing that soil back together, getting good coverage over the fertiliser and sealing it in there. Third method, which is a practice I've been using for years, is soil dressing, still with coulter disc, so you're putting it down the soil of the still. Through that we actually water samples, KP samplers were set up in the paddock on the trial site. So we did, basically there's 9 trial strips through the paddock, 3 trials replicated, 3 quantities. And that was randomly selected across there. As you can see in the picture here, you can see, probably not really clearly, but down the bottom there is basically a little tube. It's got surrounded by sponge with a little float in there. So as the water comes through, that float will lift up, activate a pump inside the box, and it will sample every so often and take a sample while that water's flowing through. From those samples, they take away and test it and determine what nutrients are in that water that are flowing through. On some of the samples, it also give you a time on how long that water will actually flow through. So you're looking at what is your tailwater runoff and how long it went for. So far, the results, this is only 1 year's results. We've got the trial running again this year, and I'll probably myself, if I can get the support, fund it again for another year to get 3 years worth of results out of it. So far, they go through, they look at the run, not just looking at irrigation water, they do a sample of the water going in. They also look at what rainfalls come through. So you'll have irrigation events and rainfall events recorded as it goes through the KP samples and the flumes. This is basically, you can see a better picture of it there, it will float on the right hand side, and it says there's a sponge with the host on it. They're just samples on their own, sampling on one row coming through. So the next picture, please. Now these are a flume, you see the front side of it. It's basically like a funnel, and they lift, make it short, put it in there, cement it in so it doesn't move. They also shovel across the 2 outer rows beside it, so you're catching 3 rows through there. The 2 samplers at the front there, and it also measures what flows going through this, so they've got an idea of how long they've got and what, the quantity of water flowing out. Just change the picture again, please. Now, that's the back side of it. You can see that they're actually in drums, these samplers, so they're set up here on the side taking samples. Next slide, please. Now, we've also, this 2 years ago, I did the same trial with another group in Reading, and the results that we got from that, we weren't getting a lot of nutrient coming through on the samples compared to some other sites. So when I applied to be part of this project, so I'd like to do it on a different paddock where I actually have subsurface drainage. So I've actually got drain pipes in underneath the crop, because we used to have water retention in clay pans there, so to drain that out of the paddock so we don't get that boggy conditions. Now, just go to the next slide. Next one, please. So that's basically the animal drain. What we did to prevent any contamination coming in from the drain that it's placed in was we cemented in a pipe, vertical pipe in there with a T-piece on it. So the actual pipe coming out of the paddock is quite a bit lower, and we allow that to fill up. The KP sample is put in through the top on the same system on a float, so as water gets there, they'll actually pick it up and start pumping. And once it switches off, it'll shut down and basically put the time. This one, I haven't checked the one from Bethmake, but if you go to the next slide. No. Oh, it hasn't gone. Oh, no, you can't see it. You go back to the previous one. You can't quite see it on there, but there's a little box on the side of the drum there. That's actually a little area on it, so that's obviously talking back to them to tell them when it's going on. Whether it's transferring information, I'm not sure, because that's not the field I get into. I'm farming. So through this, we found that last year some of the flumes weren't capturing the water as effectively as others, and we figured that that was due to the furrow profile and the hill shape, and we were getting crossovers and breakouts. So to rectify that, and this is what we're looking at, where we find an issue, what can we do to rectify the problem on the farm? So we went through and actually reshaped the furrow of the hill to prevent that from happening and get positive flows through the rows. And we don't have that trouble this year. So each flume, each sample is actually getting water arriving at much the same time. Now for me, it's going to give me a result on are my farming practices limiting my effect on the environment outside of my farm. For me, the results are very positive so far. There's very, very low nutrient levels coming through on the samples. The drain that it sits in actually travels down to the end of my farm to a recycle pit. Now if you're heading to Townsville, you'll see it in the green acres there. There's a pond out there, you probably see ducks in it. We actually recycle 100% of water on our farm. So anything that travels out of that, we pick it up and re-pump it into the farm. All my farms are set up like that. There's only 5 acres out of the whole 600 acres that I cannot capture because it travels a different way, but it travels underneath the highway and across to my neighbour who then pumps it with his recycle. So, in a sense, the whole lot is recycled and doesn't leave farm except for in a rain. And that's probably the goal we're trying to achieve as growers, with reef regulations and the spotlight being on us on our practices. We're using the technology that we've got at hand to limit our effect and show that what we're doing is our best practice. And I'm open for questions on anything up there or anything else that you'd like to know. Very cool.
Must be one.
Lost in
How have you found your nursing teaching to help you on farm?
All right, how am I nursing up on the farm? Oh, that is a good question. Okay, it's probably given me more of an understanding how to communicate with people. It's also probably opened my mind up to the fact that just because you've grown up in the industry doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up. So I branched out into a lot of my friends went off and became mechanics, fitters and turners and boiler makers, whatever. It's not restricted what you go into. It's the same with the ag industry. What we're finding now, and look, a little question I'll put to you is what would be one of the most common tools, well, for me today, a farmer would use? Just think of it. I think technology-wise.
GPS.
We use GPS, phone. This little gadget. Now, I can record, we have a thing called AirWeb. Now, we can put the information into that and that'll give us, it will tell us what the evaporation rates are, cloud cover, the weather conditions, and give you an idea to on your scheduling for irrigation without having to do a lot of work in the field. So once you've sort of, in a sense, calibrated what you're doing, AirWeb can actually give you the information on what it looks like. I mean, it's a tool we use. When our cane is crushed, I can look up how it's going, CCS readings, etc., all that. Weather reports, pricing my crop, I can do it all through my phone. So I can actually call the price, log in. Information services through SRA, PBS, there's all apps out there, and recording data. So we can do that, we can do it through GPS, we can do it through our phones. There's a lot of apps and that's going on. So we've come a long way from where I started with soil moisture monitoring to using GDOT, which is so simple, to basic technology recording. A little comment that was made to me yesterday when I was talking to someone was the ag industry has evolved, so now you can be an absolute tech geek and still be involved in ag. Because we have a lot of basic technological support for what we're doing with trials, data collection, and so forth. So, a job in the ag industry, it's not just farming. We have a lot of support. We have, you've got your agronomy services, your research services. So, as far as when you're sort of looking at a career in ag, it is a very big industry, and yeah, a lot of support for farmers and people on the ground. Nursing was a bit of a different approach, but it gave me insight to a lot of things, and it gave me a chance to branch out into something different and not just follow through with what I've grown up with. Anything else?
After you finish like what you're doing now, are you thinking of branching off into any other areas to try and improve them? Like farming?
Yeah, look, it's a probably constant evolution what we're doing in farming. So through this, we look at our practice change and how it affects our farm and how it benefits us to know what we're going to do to change. We look at different things. There's a lot of, if you have a look around the district, a lot of solar going in for running pumps. So we're trying to, our main two of our biggest costs are electricity and water, and they just keep spiralling up. So how do we can keep, and we keep trying to find different ways of getting electricity prices down, and the other way is putting solar in. And it comes down to a grower by grower basis, whether it's affordable, whether it works out economically. We've done a lot of, you've had a look at what we have to do with calibration, spraying, etc. Part of the project remote where we go through that as well. So we go through the spray rig, look at our efficient net running, whether we've got the right jets, whether they're all functioning properly, whether we need to upgrade things on that to get the correct flows and the application right. So it's, everything's sort of moving in that way, and it has been for quite a while.
Do you believe you'll be more successful as a farmer if you have all the new technology, or is it just as easy to succeed with all the old?
It is, and isn't, look, the technology makes it easier, well, from my point of view, to move forward, in the sense that you're recording the data as you go, you're recording your changes, you're recording the effects it has, and whether it's good or bad. Other things changing going forward, it's hard to say. So, it does, years ago I didn't have GPS on my tractors. Now, look, it's good and bad. GPS is wonderful because I'm running the fertiliser box through it. You're not having to steer a tractor, so you know your placement is going in the same place every time. But in the same token, when it breaks down, you're stopped. So they're good and bad still, but yeah, as technology grows and where we adapt it to farming, it does improve things. Makes it more efficient to run.
And what are the sort of other jobs or people you work with at the government?
Well, we work with
labour force.
the labour force we work with. You're working basically from people that help you repair things, mechanics, boiler makers, fitters and turners, helping you keep your machinery going, to agronomy services. So you're looking at Sugar Research Australia, providing information and research they've done, assistance with like this project here. With BPS, it's an organisation that's grown. They assist with research projects. They assist us on farm. So if you've got a problem, one thing I am doing at the moment with our recycle bits, every so many years we desalt them. So you're going to get a lot of fines coming in from your water, and it will end up filling up on the bottom. So I've just recently done just yesterday done a recycle put out. And what we're doing now is BPS is going out and sampling that soil to find out what's in there. So we're going to look at what nutrients are in there and possibly what chemicals are in there. So, and that gives us an idea how freely things move and are we containing the paddock or is it moving off. So, and through that, like I say, practice change. What can we change on farm that will benefit both ourselves? Because the last thing we want is our products moving off farm. Because we pay for it, we want it to do its job, and then we don't want it moving off and affecting anyone else or the environment. One of the farm over on Rebeds, JJ, I know, it's quite a deep water hole through there. Maybe not bad fishing if you can catch something there.
Yeah, it's good.
And it's quite clean, healthy, and any tar water that we can't catch in our recycle pit after rainfall does drain into there. And look, it's quite a large water hole and quite pristine. So yeah, and plenty of freshwater crops in there too.
Stephen, do you find with your connection with the early and cane growers and you've got that little bit of insight to some projects and know a little bit about government regulations and things, do you think that's a positive for cane growers to be proactive in that respect? It is.
Cane growers, Birmingham and cane growers Queensland is very proactive in dealing with government. Doesn't matter which government's in there. We're constantly knocking on their door to try and improve things. Trying to work with them on setting these regulations so that they are practical and workable. It's one thing we find is a big stick doesn't work, but when you're working together, you can achieve great outcomes and the results that are necessary. Insight into what's going on, yes, sometimes you wish you weren't on the forefront, being as part of direct on the local cane growers, because you are dealing with a lot of issues in the industry all the time. When I first went, I surprised me how much goes on. So we have a Brisbane office there in Queensland Cane Growers. Staff down there constantly busy dealing with government, dealing with regulations, right from the reef regulations through to transport, electricity, the whole lot, water pricing. It's a constant job and battle to try and get the best outcome for our members and the growers.